Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wally Global. Today is April 9th, 2025. In this episode, I wanted to talk about the tariff war between China and the United States. Trump just issued a statement saying that he would impose additional tariffs on China because China retaliated and asked him to withdraw the tariffs. Now it has been implemented. This administration has already imposed a 104% tariff on China. If China and the United States officially decouple, is it necessary to do business with Americans? China is prepared. It just exports 500 billion US dollars to the United States. There is no problem. In fact, it is not. It turns out that this is a small matter. On the contrary, it turns out that China will face 8 fatal consequences. This episode mainly counts these consequences for everyone. Are they really that fatal? Before we begin, I kindly invite you to subscribe to my channel. It's completely free. Feel free to leave a comment, like the video, and share it with your friends to help support the channel.
Thank you for your support.
Trump posted a message on his Truth social media saying that he had reached an agreement with South Korea and also talked about military protection. He will legitimize military protection. He has said before that Taiwan can be protected militarily. Taiwan can pay, and now each country is imposing tariffs and military measures. I think there is some mystery behind it. In addition, he said that China really wants to make a deal. It really wants to, but they don't know how to start. In fact, he is so arrogant that he can't get off the stage. In fact, China has suffered a lot in this tariff war. In fact, many viewers say that the United States has suffered a lot. I believe that there will be inflation in the United States. There will definitely be inflation. Interest rates may have to rise, but the economy, will the stock market decline due to various reasons? Will it lead to interest rate cuts? I really don't know. I won't talk about the United States here because this video is very long. You may start a video, but not many people will watch it. They say that the United States has tried this. I have mentioned 2 American films. I may introduce them to you later. They are all about their unlimited warfare. Coming back here, they feel that China is not stepping down. He said, "I'm here. If you call me, I will talk to you and wait for China to call." Will China call? Now that the countermeasures have reached this level, I have seen people with different political ideologies telling China not to back down and continue the tariff war. Why should China do business with the Americans? It is so hard to retreat when everyone is obsessed with wolf warriors. If China calls Trump now, wouldn't that be very bad? Is it like Li Ka-shing? Some people will curse and say, let's wait and see. But when that opportunity comes, I don't even know if you think China will kneel down and call Trump, or should we not take it too hard? Since the Americans are shooting themselves in the foot, of course, they should impose tariffs. What if China refuses to kneel down and calls Trump? What does that mean? It represents 104% this year, plus the 20% from the previous session. Basically, it should be simply said that there is a decoupling, that is, the 2 countries cut off this so-called trade. It is very difficult. It is really very difficult. So you think that there is no trade first. If there is no trade, what is the impact? Let's ignore the Americans and pay attention to China. Okay, let's talk about China first. Let's get back to the point. Now, in fact, the basic composition of China's GDP is actually exports, which account for 20% of China. As for the rest, you see consumption and government spending. Capital formation is the largest. So I want to say that although everyone says that exports only account for 20%, the United States only accounts for 20% of the 20%, which is only 4%. It's only 3%, which seems to be very little. But what does very little mean? 500 billion US dollars a year is very important for China in this environment. 500 billion US dollars a year is equal to 30,000. 500 billion a year will be 10 trillion in 3 years. They have done so many things, issued bonds and so on, all to make 10 trillion. Now there is no 10 trillion, so let's just pretend it's not important because it will be more serious later. Why? I want to say that the formation of GDP and exports are real things. Capital formation comes from large-scale construction. I did a study on why the domestic real estate market exploded. It's because the city governments kept borrowing money, municipal investment bonds, and various things, and lent money to developers through their municipal investment bonds and finance. Institutions and so on are constantly selling and building houses. They build more than they really need, so there are ghost towns everywhere. Those are counted in GDP. Here it is more than 40%. So now you have to know that consumption is not easy. Now we're promoting some consumption involution. Now, consumption makes a loss when it is sold. It is involutionary consumption and deflation competition. So GDP today is very important. Exports. So if the 500 billion is gone, the direct impact is that its real GDP will be gone without the 500 billion. That's it. Issuing bonds here, you can all go back to my video and have a look. I have already talked about an operation and how it constitutes its GDP. The GDP used to be more than 40%, which is equivalent to the situation in Japan, so it is actually very hurtful. Now, if China is unwilling to kneel down and call Trump, what does it mean? It means 104% for this term, plus the previous term, which was more than 20%. In addition, in fact, basically, it should be simply said that decoupling means that the two countries have cut off this so-called trade. It is very difficult. If you think that there is no trade, what is the impact? Let's talk about exports to the United States. There is no decoupling, right? If it is decoupled, then the production capacity is here, the line is here, the companies are here, the factories, the labor is here, the people are here. Then how are you going to recover the 500 billion? Then you have to sell these things to other countries. If you sell them to other countries, the United States will accuse you of dumping, and Europe may accuse you of subsidies. In this case, you dump so many things to other countries, which will cause a backlash. So here, I want to say that this news is important. This news was in the middle of last year. It was already stated at that time that if a trade war between China and the United States breaks out, if China sells the production capacity that it has sold to the United States to Indonesia, then it is not the president but the trade minister who said that the United States can impose a 200% tariff on imported ceramics and clothing. He said that they can do this. He said that they can ensure that the industries of small and medium-sized enterprises can develop and survive. He said that at the same time, Indonesia is drafting a new so-called step-by-step regulation to address stakeholders' concerns about the lack of regulations to protect local industries from being affected by the influx of Chinese-made products. Minister Hansen said that the tariff policy announced this time will take effect after the regulations come into effect. He said that what may be involved are footwear, clothing, textiles, cosmetics, and ceramic imports. For China, refer to the Hong Kong media called Business Digest, go back to last year's July 2nd. Actually, everyone has already made a plan. If you sell those things, the 500 billion US dollars to other countries, then in the end, China will not only face tariffs on the United States. You say that it may not necessarily do business with the United States. In fact, you will have tariff wars with other places, which will be troublesome. Vietnam is also the same. China is dependent on Vietnam. Some factories are located in Vietnam and then go to the United States to avoid US tariffs. So this time, Vietnam is the first to say that it will negotiate with the United States at zero tariffs. Moreover, it has proposed to the United States to directly investigate the anti-dumping duties on the steel industry of South Korea and China. Gradually, it will not stop, because if the United States knows that you are avoiding tariffs in this way, it will investigate and may impose tariffs on those parts and materials imported into Vietnam. So this is not a joke. Don't think that it is only the United States. Don't make a mistake. Everyone has focused a lot on the Sino-US trade war and the one-on-one decoupling. The whole thing is not like this. The European Union is also the same. Don't think that the European Union is very friendly to China. I have said it before. In the law, for China, those so-called new energy vehicles and electric vehicles, they accused China of subsidies. So they had to increase tariffs to protect them to 45.3% is very severe and will last for 5 years. Can China withstand it in 5 years? China has made so many electric cars and so many electric vehicles. There is a saying that the United States has imposed tariffs, so the EU and China will deal with the United States together. Will it happen? In fact, The EU is very divided on the United States. Basically, some verbal attacks have been launched. Will the EU finally negotiate with the United States or not? It's very intense. I said no, it's hard to say. Trump is really crazy and too repetitive. In short, some people say he is crazy. How to say it? Everyone has different opinions. It's hard to deal with him together. This is the first and second. Just now, such news is really bad for China. Zelensky. You all know that the EU must be more nervous with Ukraine because of the lips and teeth. It's more nervous than the United States. It turned out that there were Chinese taxi soldiers. It's not what I said. Zelensky said, it is possible that he is lying. Maybe the two people he captured turned out to be Chinese. Now he is asking China to explain. Will it cause the EU to think that China can become an ally? Don't be so simple. It makes my head itch to think about this happening at this time. To be honest, the United States is now rushing to buy up those daily necessities. Trump has the final say. He will continue to move forward. At least he will wait until the midterm, which will be 2 years later. So if he does it now, sooner or later, those daily necessities will slowly replace those in China. This is what worries me the most. Now he said it was labor pains. What if it is replaced? Some things I have already seen replaced. Let's talk about this at the next point. Instead, I want to say that if China doesn't have that 500 billion or that production capacity, it will be unsaleable and there will be nothing to sell. What should we do with it? In addition to selling it to other countries, in addition to the tariff anti-dumping measures imposed on China, another thing is the internal circulation. China has a huge market, but the problem is that China is now facing a competition called involution. Many factories are cutting prices at a cutthroat price. It is very cheap. In many cases, the selling price is cheaper than the factory price. What should we do? Because of overcapacity, if you leave it there and there is no export, the 500 billion will be kept in the warehouse, which is even worse. When you put it in the warehouse, you have to pay rent and manage it. It is better to sell it. In addition, it will be slow and time sensitive, so it is better to throw it out and sell it to consumers cheaply. However, this will aggravate involution. What does involution lead to? It leads to deflation. Some people may say that there is no deflation. The previous governor of the People's Bank of China, Yi Gang, has already said that there is deflation, so you should not deny it. In fact, there is no deflation. There is the so-called just watching the news and looking at the facts. When you have deflation, some people will say, what's wrong with deflation? If I talk about this sentence, I may have the opportunity to shoot another film to talk about the challenges of deflation. Now, you say that the United States is now panic buying daily necessities, etc. In fact, we don't care about it or care about it. It elected a president by itself. It elected it. I don't care much about it. But I care about China. Why? Such panic buying will not last long. Why? Sooner or later, other countries will take over. In fact, if the six sides compete, others will benefit. Just now, the president of India said that he likes this tariff war very much because it is a rare opportunity in 1,000 years. Why? Take away a lot of things from China. It can move some factories at this time. There are many toy manufacturers. Hasbro has started China before. When we were in +1, we were already moving there, but very slowly. This time, we are very determined to move 40% of our production capacity to India. The ice is 3 feet thick, and it didn't freeze overnight. In the past, China said that production was its demographic dividend in all aspects, but it was getting more and more expensive. Everyone said that we should not rely on only one country, so it was called China +1. It was not the same as China Decouple. It said that there needed to be other countries besides China. When I saw that this China +1 had been going on for several years, in the UK, when you see Primark, as soon as you go in, there are many Bangladeshis, Vietnamese, etc., many sunglasses, slippers, which are only £1 and very cheap, sneakers, etc., all of which are available in India, are not made in China. Basically, you can't find Chinese products. In the past, maybe 90% or 20%, I forgot how many supermarkets there were, 90% to 80% were made in China. Now it may be reduced to 40% to 60%. In the future, tariffs will force everyone's factories to give up their dreams and fantasies. Since China plus one has already made a small start or worked hard, it will accelerate because the cost of going to other places may be higher than in China, but the 104% tariff there has become this. What I am most worried about is the acceleration of the relocation of that kind of production capacity to other countries. And what is the biggest problem? You have figured out that China itself has a huge skilled labor supply chain. It is very complete, but now it has accelerated the training of others. Even if there is no tariff in the future and Trump is driven out of office, China will face competition from multiple countries. In that competition from multiple countries, others have a large population and cheaper labor. They are cheaper than the mainland, but not necessarily much cheaper than the mainland. They are cheaper than the mainland, such as Bangladesh, etc. China has created some deadly competitors. Do you think it is very serious? Especially India is eyeing this golden opportunity. Do you think it is? In fact, it is true. If it is not like this, I think it will also pick up the tariff war. But it has a long way to go, and it is quite difficult because those people and businessmen are, of course, for the current cheapness of China or are already there. I am too lazy to raise costs. Now, everyone is forced to go to India. Many iPhones are produced in India. Some viewers said that the iPhone will become 30,000 yuan a unit because you are not producing it in China now. In fact, many iPhones have been produced in India, but they are not enough. Some seem to have gone to Taiwan. I remember that there are still some. It doesn't matter. I corrected it. I just saw Apple Tim Cook. The investment is to invest 500 billion US dollars in the United States in the next 5 years. Why? Everyone has agreed that it will basically go this way. That is, Apple will invest in some high-end production and produce it in the United States. In fact, I think we may have to make another film to talk about why the United States is so willing to impose tariffs and is so isolated. Next, AI plus robots. The United States has very mature AI plus robots. NVIDIA has already open-sourced it. Tesla has a robot called Tesla Optimus, which is already a humanoid robot. You can make it in many shapes for a purpose. In this way, the demographic dividend and the production cost of people in the future will no longer be important. The production cost in the United States may be a little higher today, but if you don't use people to handle it in the future, it may not necessarily be the most expensive to produce in the United States. So if you look at it for a few more years, we will see that it is very superficial. People in the core of technology are talking to those companies and Apple. So you see, I want to say that this is China, these American-funded Tesla, Apple, Nike, and many others, even those in Europe that rely on China for production. Those multinational companies, not just China's own manufacturers, will take this opportunity to flee. It seems that Samsung just left again. Those Japanese have been leaving for a long time and have been leaving, but this time, even those who are full of fantasies may be because of this 100%. The tariffs are going to go away. If these manufacturers leave, what will be the problem? Do you know what the problem is? I want to tell you that the problem is that exports do not only affect US exports. You have to understand that Nike and Tesla are made in China and exported to the whole world. So how can the whole thing only affect the 500 billion? Didn't I get it wrong? I got it wrong. So don't think that I don't care about your US market or your US being hurt a little. In fact, I can't control these. The US grabbing toilet paper is a big thing for China now. This is a big deal. The seventh point is that China's own companies are fleeing. Do you think they are dead or not? In fact, they have already gone to Mexico and Vietnam, including Shein. I encourage those people. If you set up a factory in Vietnam, I will increase your purchase price by 30%, etc. Everyone is doing it, but doing so is actually very harmful to China. It was better before because it might be the last step of OEM or the last step in that country. The added value is small. The big added value is in China, but now the Americans are doing this. This thing may really break the cable and go to that country. Will some even go to the United States? BYD higher. The refrigerators are all manufactured in the United States. If this is the case, there are several big problems. The first is that China's own manufacturers have moved to other places. That means that China's exports to the world will be immediately affected, not just the United States. You have to understand this because their production is for the whole world. And if they move away from China, it will be a disaster. Move away from Nike, Tesla, and others moved away. I am not exaggerating. I am telling you this. The news is coming out soon. The Ministry of Commerce is going to talk to these supply chains. Don't leave China. Why do they want to talk? Because it is so tight and tense. You can grab some big ones, but the big ones can't do business. The big ones will decline. The small ones won't talk to you. Where is the time for the talk? There are probably many small and insightful Chinese companies. Chinese companies will be scattered in different places around the world, or you expect that the United States may have some places, such as Malaysia and Thailand, where there are many Chinese factories, and you may be able to reach an agreement. But then it wants you to impose tariffs on China. Maybe Thailand will impose tariffs on China. Vietnam, you just saw anti-dumping. In such a situation, they simply cut off the supply chain. They want to cut off the entire material supply chain, put it there. If you still think about it, there will be a tariff there. So this is the big cauldron. This not only affects all exports, but also equals capital flight. In this case, it is really irreversible. So many things are needed for capital flight. Do you think it will die? Those are corporate capital flight and personal capital flight. Many people have already done it. I have made a video before. 2 trillion capital flight is half a year. The 8th point I want to say that China now has 6 major countermeasures. But after reading those 6 major countermeasures, in fact, almost 80% to 90% of them are punishing China itself. Why? Keep it a secret. Remember to subscribe to my channel. I will make another video to talk about how these 6 measures make China face a more difficult dilemma. It is not just these 8 points. I will reply to these 8 points once and quickly summarize the GDP of 500 billion US dollars. No, it's just that in the United States, China originally had excess production capacity to sell to other countries, which led to other countries thinking that you were dumping and retaliating. Now it's going a little bit. You might say that they are dumping tariffs. China retaliates against those countries in the past. For example, those Europeans who sell luxury goods to you, Chinese cars, etc. Now that China's economy is in decline, the numbers of those luxury goods have plummeted to the point of losses and layoffs. So the current countermeasures are not very strong, but the EU has already done its countermeasures, as I just said. In addition, the internal cycle has intensified. The 4th point has led to intensified deflation. Deflation means that everyone doesn't spend money to fill their stomachs, and the goods are even more difficult to buy. It's a vicious cycle. In addition, the United States has negotiated with other countries that there is something called China Plus One. The supply chain will go to other countries, which will be troublesome. People will get used to buying goods in other countries. For example, if you buy toilet paper in the United States now, you will laugh at it. Later, toilet paper may be imported from Bangladesh. Walmart will import more from Bangladesh, and Primark has already been. Have you formed some supply chain competitors? You have accelerated their development. The 6th worst thing is that American companies and foreign companies have fled away from China. There is a high unemployment rate and it is cheap. Will India then have its own companies? The 7th and 8th are countermeasures. The next video said that there are 6 major countermeasures. This is even more troublesome. I had made 2 videos about the United States in my other channels, which is about that in order to fight a tariff war with China, the United States has 6 major measures to strengthen its finances. In fact, it has long anticipated a trade war. I made a video 4 months ago saying that it is a war of unlimited war. I'm not kidding. Look at Elon Musk's situation. He also cut a lot of budget, bring back some bullets and some money. In addition, the situation of the US Treasury bonds, etc. We need to be prepared for trade wars and financial wars. If you have a chance, you can watch this video and see a little bit. Now the situation in the United States is very serious. Is it really that serious or what? In fact, it is very serious. It doesn't matter what the stock market is like. Those will be filmed when there is a chance. But it seems that we should pay more attention to China now because so many things are happening now. Today's video is almost done. You may as well leave a passionate message below. Thank you for watching.